No, the world is not multipolar is an article linked up on Mark13News.com for September 22nd, 2023. And as you can see in the article, despite what politicians, pundits, and investment bankers tell us, it is simply a myth that today's world is anywhere close to multipolar. And as you can see in the Daniel 11 hypothesis on biblicalresearchlabs.com, the robbers of thy people exalting themselves to establish the vision in Daniel chapter 11 verse 14 means the Kenites will attempt to establish the one world system called also the New World Order, but they shall fall, which is a word translated from the Hebrew, which in this case means to fail, because the New World Order, as it's called, won't come into being until Satan and his angels get cast to earth at the woe of the fifth trumpet, at the beginning of Daniel's 70th week, which was 7 years but is now 5 months, called also the hour of temptation. Until then, we'll continue to see continuous propaganda stemming from the multipolarist Kenites as well as the unipolarist Kenites as nation continues to rise against nation, meaning the Kenite nation rising against itself within the shadow government thereof, which is symbolized by the he-goat of Daniel chapter 8. The great horn of the he-goat being the United Nations, in my opinion, which came into being in 1945 when the hidden dynasty of politics was globalized, when the third trumpet began to sound, and then in 1948, Kenite-occupied Israel came into being, which is when the hidden dynasty of religion was globalized, when the fourth trumpet began to sound, then in 1969, the fifth trumpet began to sound, but 5 means grace in biblical numerics, and the grace period of the fifth trumpet will end at the woe of the fifth trumpet when the so-called New World Order comes into being, having 7 heads, which are symbolic of the 7 continents of the planet Earth, and 10 horns, which are symbolic of 10 fallen angel kings. When the one world political system of Revelation 13 emerges after the great horn of the he-goat, which is the United Nations, in my opinion, gets broken, as you can see in Daniel chapter 8, verse 8, and only then do the 4 notable ones, which are the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7, emerge, and Daniel's 4th beast is exclusively supernatural, having 10 horns, which again are symbolic of 10 fallen angel kings, and it's also at the woe of the 5th trumpet that the he-goat of Daniel chapter 8 becomes the leopard of Daniel chapter 7, which is symbolic of the Kenites and their 4 hidden dynasties, providing the infrastructure of the so-called New World Order that will then be wounded to death, after which Satan will appear as the Antichrist at the woe of the 6th trumpet, when all 6 trumpets of deception are sounding at the same time, which is when those 4 angels will be loosed from the great river Euphrates, and that's when the image of Satan in his role of Antichrist will be transmitted throughout the globe, along with the images of his fallen angel locust army in the consumer stage thereof, deceiving most Christians into worshiping Satan instead of Christ, which is what Antichrist means, causing the Christian nations, which are symbolized by the lion of Daniel chapter 7, to become non-Christian nations also, with the bear of Daniel chapter 7 being symbolic of the Ezekiel 38 confederacy, and then at the woe of the 7th trumpet, the true Christ will return as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, destroying Satan's role of Antichrist along with his fallen angels and his one world system, and that's when all flesh will be destroyed also and changed into spiritual bodies when the Great Tribulation begins, which is the 1,000-year-long day of the Lord that begins at the 7th trumpet when the true Christ returns. And as the true Christ says in the last verse of Mark chapter 13, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch.